welcome to Do It Like a Dancer. So a long time ago, probably about a year, somebody asked me for a video that explained more on isolation techniques. That was from this video, which is somewhere around here, up over my shoulder. I'll put the little thing to it. So really when I talk about isolation techniques, so other people might do it differently. And of course in hip hop there's a lot more. But what I really mean when I talk about isolation techniques is mostly in the torso and the spine. And I think being able to separate those things is really important, and it's something that most beginning dancers can't do. So about 99% of my students, when I tell them when we start doing this exercise, they do this or this or this, but this ability to separate the torso is something they really struggle with. And if you can separate the torso, then you can separate also the hips, and you can do these like belly dance type of maneuvers. I don't know anything about belly dance, but I know that that's connected, and the heads, and that's all of that. So basically it really starts with the ability to separate your hips from your mid-torso, from your shoulders, and then also be able to do that with your spine. So you can move your upper spine, and then your middle spine, and then your lower spine, which is at the base of your spine without moving your shoulders. So the way I think the best way to work on that is first of all is to learn to do this separation. And I think if I were to suggest it, it would be to start by actually pushing your hips to the side and trying to keep your shoulders where they are. Now, part of the inability to move this might be just a lack of stretching in your sides. So you can start by doing these stretches and make sure that when you go to the side, your hips don't also go, because what you want is to stretch these muscles in the ribs, right? And you also want to make sure that you're not going front or back, but you're really going to the side. So starting to stretch those, and then when we want to go to the side, you start by pushing your hips and seeing how far you can make this sort of C shape with your body, right? For a beginner, it's going to be like much less than mine, obviously. And then once you start getting the sense of this feeling, you can also try to upright your shoulders. So you push your hips, and then you try to sort of like reset your hips, but leave your torso there, and then bring it upright. And so you push your hips, you bring your shoulders, then reset your hips to the middle and bring it back. So that's the beginning of learning how this feels in the body, right? And then you can differentiate that by doing the side to side sweeps. So that's one. And then of course, if you, it always feels kind of silly, but with the hips, if you bend your knees a little bit, and then you just raise one of your hips and try not to move your shoulders. So you look at this in the mirror. Oh, it's not super comfortable, so you can't stay in this position. But you basically are pushing one hip to the side and the other. And then at some point, you get the sense where you can move them without moving your shoulders, and then straightening up, you can push up into a releve, and that brings the hip up, but try not to move your shoulders. So you get just a sense of in the body how these different things feel, and then you can start experimenting with moving the hips and trying not to move the shoulders, right? With the upper spine, it's again a question of flexibility and stretching to start with. So just to sort of, in a mirror, you see kind of as you're rolling the bits of your spine that are moving. And then for the upper spine, if you sort of stand in a nice high ballet posture and just try to pull up your chest, it's like taking a deep breath and then releasing it. And trying to feel, but a breath that's not in your lungs, but it's here in your solar plexus. And that can start to help. And you then try to do that without moving this back. And it's just here in the chest, right? It's a very small movement. So if you're looking for something huge, it's not going to be that. But it really makes a difference in how your shoulders are set and the presentation, right? If you want to look confident, you know, this is the place to move. So, and then basically as we start to do the rolls, you know, I'm just swaying my hips back and front and back just to get a sense again of how this movement feels without implicating the shoulders. And then to just start by pulling in the belly button and releasing. And pulling in the belly button. So you want to make this arch flat, essentially. And that's as far as it goes. You're never going to get a big concave because that's just not the way the human body is made. But as you start to sort of explore these rolls and try to leave your shoulders as they are. So it's actually a lot of work in your core. If you feel your core while you're doing the rolls, you're doing them correctly. If you don't, then you should take a look in the mirror because something is probably moving at the same time. So I also do shoulder rolls. So and this again, stretching your shoulders. And working on this. So a lot of isolation begins with flexibility, which is interesting because it's the ability to stretch certain muscles and not others. So anything that you want to isolate, you know, anything in your body that you want to isolate, you have to also stretch the surrounding muscles to be able to work on them individually. So basically, in summary, isolation techniques start with stretching, especially with the torso. Start with moving the hips and seeing if you can get just a sense in the body of what it feels like when the body is moving in opposition. Work on your big breaths for your spine. Work on roll downs as well, and really articulating the roll up as well as the roll down. Right, so you work on those, and then, you know, work on pulling the different parts of your spine back so you can see the differences in where in the body the different muscles are moving, and again, you know, swaying the body in different places, and then you can start working on rolls. I hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and good luck. See you next time.